Good morning. I'm Ayya Vimala, and this is November 7th, Sunday. And today is our fourth meditation that I'm taking from the book Mindfully Facing Climate Change by Bhikkhu Analayo. And so far we have done, and these are meditations. He wrote this book in 2019, so we hadn't entered the pandemic yet. So in addition to being his own contemplations and study on our relationship to the earth and our relationship to even what we can do to help in situations outside maybe political or environmental situations. He gives a lot of good structure from the Buddha's teachings. But he's also talking about how to deal with catastrophic change in the world. And so since this book has been written, of course, we've entered the pandemic. We're still it's been a year and a half since we've been involved with it, and it's still not going away, and it's also created a lot more controversy and chaos in the entire world. So the book becomes even more and more valuable, and these meditations are I think they're wonderful meditations, and they also are a good way to work with all of the principles he uses in them. So we've done contemplation of the earth, and that was a body scan primarily. We've done contemplation of the mind, so we worked with mindfulness and feeling tone and how to experience true mindfulness, what it feels like. And then we did contemplation of cultivating compassion, was the one we did Friday. That's a very good practice and a good way to work with the four Brahma Viharas, which include loving kindness and compassion and sympathetic joy and equanimity. So the meditation for cultivating compassion can work with all of those. And then the one we're doing today is contemplation of impermanence. So I want to read this. It's about 2 pages, and I think the description is wonderful. This is kind of this gets into thinking about the end of things and cessation. So if you have a lot of anxiety and fear around that, you might want to you can just leave that part out, or in the meditation you might, if you don't want to deal with that as a topic for meditation, then just be aware that's coming at the end. So I'll read this, and then we'll use the rest of our time to practice. And the practice will not be guided, so you can use the reading to just guide your meditation. So the contemplation of impermanence, and these are Bhikkhu Analayo's words. Out of the full scheme of instructions on mindfulness of breathing, for the present context, the recommendation is to rely on its last 4 steps. And that's when we were talking about allowing that, when we were with the mindfulness, was allowing that curtain to be drawn back, and that quality of pure mindfulness could radiate out. Which combined, and it also was working with the breathing. So rely on its last 4 steps, which combine awareness of inhalations and exhalations with contemplation of impermanence, dispassion, cessation, and letting go. Awareness of the process of breathing established after the body scan for experiencing the internal earth element can now be invested with an emphasis on directly experiencing its impermanent nature. In terms of one's mental attitude, this involves a shift from the compassion cultivated earlier to equanimity, now becoming predominant. So we're moving from compassion to equanimity, which is that equipoise. That's that balance of our emotions, of our feelings, of being in that very equalized position internally and externally. It becomes this, the compassion that we cultivated earlier moves to equanimity, which now becomes prominent, with the understanding that the breath is nothing but change. Just as the breath, so everything else is also impermanent. Those who like to work with more detail could bring in the 5 aggregates. And I really like this, if you're familiar with the 5 aggregates, and this will explain it. But this is a beautiful way he explains how we can understand the 5 aggregates too. The 5 aggregates are the 5 components of what all living beings are made up of, and they're all actually the source of our suffering because they are impermanent. So, and he does discuss them more in the book, but this is a beautiful paragraph, really, I love this. The body within which the breath is experienced corresponds to the first aggregate of bodily form. So, it's our body, we're experiencing the breath in our body. So that's the first aggregate, which is form. The sensations caused by the breath, the sensations, belong to the second aggregate of feeling tones. So that's feeling, that's the pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. The discerning of inhalations and exhalations relies on the third aggregate of perception. It's how we experience things. The intention to stay with the breath and return to it whenever the mind has become distracted is the fourth aggregate of volitional formations. So that's making the choice, that's our intention, and the action following our intention. The knowing of all these aspects of the present moment's experience of the breath is consciousness. So that's that knowing, that observer, being aware. So I'll read that one again. The knowing of all these aspects of the present moment, all that's going on just in that moment, of the present moment's experience of the breath is consciousness. Contemplation can take up each of these 5 aggregates one after the other with an emphasis on their impermanent aspects and nature. Eventually, they can be combined in a comprehensive appreciation of the changing nature of all aspects of subjective experience. So this is not how you have to do it, but he's saying if you do want more detail in the practice, working with the 5 aggregates this way can give you that detail. Once insight into impermanence has been well established, in whichever way this has been done, it can lead over to cultivating dispassion, equanimity. This takes place by letting the implications of the changing nature of all phenomena transform one's affective attitude toward them and diminish one's clinging. The more dispassion grows, the easier it will become to be at ease with the ending of things, with their cessation. Depending on the present situation and one's overall preferences, the contemplation of cessation can be done either briefly or else in more depth. Exploring the step of cessation can take place by taking up the thought of one's own death, the recognition that eventually this body will be bereft of life and the breath will stop. The thought of one's own death can be brought up either as a brief reminder, or else it can be contemplated in some detail, according to what feels appropriate at that time. For a more comprehensive reflection, the same practice can be extended to the whole earth, with the awareness that at some time in the future it will be completely destroyed. All traces of human civilization will come to an end. Nothing will remain forever. The thought of one's own death can similarly be related to the alternation between inhalations and exhalations. So this practice can be that simple. With every inhalation, there can be an emphasis on the fact that in principle, this could be the last breath. With every exhalation, one relaxes and lets go. I think this is a beautiful way to practice this. Correlating these two aspects of recognizing mortality and letting go to the inhalation and exhalation, respectively, enables adjusting the practice as needed. When the mind tries to dismiss the fact of death, more emphasis could be given to the inhalations. This is not by way of changing the inhalation in any way, but only in the sense of giving more emphasis to the corresponding reflection or perception. Breathing remains natural throughout. We don't change the breath to be heavier or longer in one direction. When the truth of mortality becomes too agitating, more emphasis can be given to relaxing and letting go with the exhalations. After having been related to the exhalations, letting go can then become a tenuous theme of the meditation, just letting go. As the last of the 4 insight themes, letting go completes the trajectory from impermanence to dispassion and cessation. Such letting go can be aimed in particular at any manifestation, however subtle it may be, of the 3 root defilements of greed, hatred, and delusion. Cultivating increasing degrees of inner freedom from the 3 root defilements enables facing their external manifestations with maximum effectiveness. So just being more aware of having inner freedom from greed, hatred, and delusion helps us work just facing their external manifestations. That becomes easier and it's more effective because we're just letting go. In this way, deepening meditative insight on the internal level builds a required foundation for countering the environmental destruction in the world outside to the best of one's ability. So that's also helping us have the best foundation to knowing what we can do, knowing how we can deal with the situation in the outer world without carrying around the anger or the greed, the clinging, or hatred or anger towards others, and also that delusion of not wanting to face reality. So I think that's very important. Let me read that. So if we want to just work with the breathing, we're going to remember the inhalation. Let's see, I want to read it exactly the way. The inhalation helps us the discerning of inhalations and exhalations is our perception, just how, if the inhalation is helping us. So our perceptions may be that the breathing can be, we want to let it become free, and we want it to become balanced eventually. So as we breathe out, we're letting go. I'm trying to remember what breathing in is. Okay. Okay, correlating these, let me read this part again, because this breath is going to be, I think, easier for most of us. The thought of one's own death can similarly be related to the alternation between inhalations and exhalations. With every inhalation, there can be an emphasis on the fact that in principle, this could be our last death. And many of us have become familiar with this idea. In principle, every death could be our last breath. With every exhalation, one relaxes and lets go. So it's breathing in with the concept clear to us that this breathing in could be the last in-breath. But then when we let go, we just let go. We relax into that. We relax and let go and breathe in again, and then relax and let go. So it's recognizing mortality and letting go. So that's an easy way to work with this practice. So why don't we do that with our remaining time? And if it becomes confusing to you, I recommend just go to the breathing in and breathing out. Same focus, the same natural breath. But you might become aware that one might feel there might be some pressure from one or the other. So you can just, okay. Try to keep it with both breaths being the same, but just be aware if there's one that you feel more pressure from. So just work with the breathing in and the breathing out. Unless you already have another way, like looking at the 5 aggregates, it's helpful for you. But just breathe in, knowing this can be, in principle, the last breath. Breathing out, relax and let go. So this is going to help us with dealing with impermanence, which will lead us to equanimity, that we know that everything comes and goes, just like our breath comes and goes. Breathing in, each time we breathe in, it could be our last breath, and breathing out, we can let go and relax. This is just the nature of life. And that brings us to that place of being okay with everything. We are okay with the ups and the downs. We don't become a robot. We still feel, and we still have emotional states that we need to work with, but we know that they all come and go, and so we can more easily come back to that point of balance and equanimity by relaxing and letting go of clinging. So let's practice. Let's just begin by being aware of the breath. Good if your feet are on the floor or your bottom's on the floor, or if you're outside, you can be practicing out in nature. All of these practices, if you're working with your concerns about climate change or the earth in general, or your concerns with the pandemic, there's just a lot to be concerned about these days. And you might just be concerned about your daily life, being able to move forward, or having enough, or wanting to know how best to serve. So this is a good practice for that too. The more we understand the impermanence of everything, the more we're able to let go, to just let go of all those things that we worry about, that we cling to, that we hang on to because they're too pleasurable or they're too incite such strong emotions. So just be aware of the body breathing. And let your breathing kind of settle as you relax. Become comfortable in your posture so there's nothing pulling you towards pain or tension in your body. You can be as comfortable as you need to be, but you want to also be attentive. So if you can lift your spine up, that helps with that attentiveness. And then just let go on the exhale. When we begin the meditation, I think it's okay to do a few deep breaths. Inhale and then exhale, really feel it. Let it be stronger. And then your body will know, okay, here we are. We're practicing now. So then what you want to do is come back to your natural breath when you feel that you're in the body, that you're present. And then we'll begin this practice. For about 10 minutes, we'll just focus on the breath, if that's how you want to do it. Or you can work with the 5 aggregates. Just identifying what part of the process each aggregate corresponds to. And then the letting go is knowing each of the 5 aggregates is impermanent. That we let go of that. Let go of it being any source of pride or feeling it is who we are. All of these things are not who we are. We don't belong to them. They don't belong to us. The nature of all living things is to rise briefly and then pass away, just exactly like each breath we take. And realizing that this is the true nature of everything in this world, on this world, and including this world, this earth we live on. That can bring us peace. And dispassion or equanimity, where we can handle everything. Breathing in, and just remember that this could be the last breath you take in. And as you breathe out, relax and let go. Let this also help you remember how precious life is. So as we breathe in, we can also think of the preciousness of this life. And as we breathe out, just let go and relax. Breathe in, knowing we are mortal. This body is, and breathe out, just letting go, just relaxing. Relax with this truth. Keep coming back to your breath. Now I've come to the end of my time with you today, but I hope if you can sit, if this has been a comfortable practice for you, or you're able to keep working with it, that you'll sit some more minutes if you have the time. Remember, it can be just as simple a practice as breathing in with the reality that in principle, each breath can be your last, that this breath, this moment, could be your last. And then breathe out, just letting go, relaxing the body, the mind. So may everything that we do or say or think today, may each one of us do it not only for our own benefit, but for the benefit of all other living beings, human and non-human, for all creatures, for the earth herself. And may you all be well and happy and peaceful. Thank you. I may not be here on Tuesday. I'm going to be driving to Tennessee, so I will, if I'm not here, I'm not here. Maybe I can do it a different time of day and then let it come on at the usual time. Thank you so much. Thank you for being part of my practice.